Hey there, how are you all doing today, wherever you are watching right now? So I'm quite pumped up because today is going to be a very special episode for our channel today, because I'm going to be putting together like a series of videos in one episode so that you can get all the value in one sitting. So if you're new here, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you wouldn't miss out on videos like this in the future. So we're going to be covering the topics that you see here on the screen right now, and I hope you're excited, and I hope after watching this video you're going to jump in and work on your first video project. And hey, I want to see your video projects. Just add the link in the comment section below, and I'm going to connect with you and see how I can help you and how we can engage in a conversation that would add value to your video production journey. So in the age of online videos, creating or producing your own videos may not be as easy as how others are doing it, but channels like this that you're watching right now, we aim to provide you with the necessary tools and the skill sets so you can just jump in and start producing your own video and focus on the creative process and just enjoy the fruits of your labor. So we're gonna jump in and head on to the first part of this video. It's gonna be long, but I assure you, you're gonna be a better video editor after watching this full episode today. So first up, most good videos start with the great ideas, but the process from a good idea to coming up with a good video is not easy. So this first part of this video that you're gonna watch today, I'm gonna show you how you can come up with a good process, an effective process from an idea going to the video. So check this out. Okay, moving on to our topic. It's not a secret that doing content or doing videos is not really easy for solopreneurs. In terms of logistics, in terms of resources, in terms of funding, it's not really easy for anyone who's running his own business to start a video and be consistent at it. But as a solopreneur, you definitely need to jump in the video creation space. So let's head on to the 7 practical steps for you today on producing your own videos from scratch. Okay, step 1, figure out your concept. You don't need to go through that complex storyboarding and complex script writing process. The very first thing that you need to do is finding out what you want to do, what is the concept, and then start planning from there. Step 2, determine your role in the video. Do you want to be a guide? Do you want to be a seller? Do you want to be a teacher? Once you determine your role, stick to it and keep doing that, and never do 2 things at the same time. Like for example, I want to be a teacher and a seller. Okay, that's the last thing that you want to do if you want your audience to run away from your channel. And if you will sell to the audience, make sure you have establish a reason for them to trust buying from you. So one way to do that is to first take on a role that they would trust. Okay, third step is to work within your level of confidence in front of the camera. Don't force things, because it will really be obvious in front of your audience if you're forcing things. The idea is to just start doing it and keep doing it until you're good at what you do. Okay, going on to the 4th step, prepare the right tools. You don't need to spend tons of money buying expensive cameras and jumping into the hype of what's the latest camera that was released. Your role is to create content, is to communicate your message, not to drain your bank account. So your smartphone is good enough. I tell you, if you have that good concept, a creative way of delivering it, your smartphone is a perfect tool for you to start creating videos. A really good tip is to make sure that you have enough lighting. If you don't have access to buying light setup, make sure you can film near a window, facing the window, and so that you can use the ambient light that's available for you. Okay, next is important. You really need to persevere and film multiple takes. As a beginner, you should not expect to get it right on the first take. So it's okay to film multiple takes and it's also a way for you to practice and boost up your level of confidence in talking in front of a camera. Okay, next, prepare an outline of what you intend to talk about. Never memorize or read from script. That is the last thing that you would want to do if you want to relate to your audience and if you want to connect to your audience. Lastly, plan your supporting footage. If you don't want to end up with a video of your talking head in a screen, plan your supporting footage. It can be a text slide, it can be a graphic, a stock photo, a stock video. You have to plan what sort of footages that you're going to be using, because these footages would make your videos interesting. I'm not saying that having you talking in front of the camera for minutes won't be as much interesting, but it's good to break away from that monotonous visuals and just bring in alternative visual supporting footage when you need it. So I hope you enjoyed that part and you have learned a few things in terms of coming up with an effective and creative process from your ideas to videos. So next up, I'm gonna show you like a basic structure on how you can come up with storyboard, and in this part of the video you would learn how a storyboard is important, whether you're starting as a vlogger or a video production professional. So let's check out the second part of our video. Okay, going on to our topic, which is storyboarding. You have probably heard of storyboarding before once. If you're in the creative space, if you're working in the creative industry, you've probably heard of this and you have probably done a storyboard before. Since this episode is for you, the solo entrepreneur who really finds it very difficult to do your own video, to plan and to distribute your video, I'm gonna make this really quick and easy and practical so that you can go ahead and start creating your own storyboard. Okay, what is a storyboard? A storyboard practically is a document that everyone in the production team uses to guide them on what to shoot, guide them on the script, guide them on specific part of the sequences in your film, in your video, where you would need music, you would need graphics, or you would need a voiceover or narration. So it's practically a production, you can call it a production manual, not really detailed, but it guides everyone on the production team. But the question is, do you need a complex storyboard when you are just trying to do small videos and starting to produce your own videos? The answer is no. So I'm going to show you a very basic storyboard structure. So this structure or this template, I regularly use this when I'm doing workshops and when I'm teaching my students in a video production class. So first, as you're looking in your screen right now, you are seeing a very basic 3-column document, So probably you're used to a storyboard that looks like this or this, and even as complex as a matrix storyboard like this. But we're not gonna go to that Hollywood level storyboarding because probably you're within a tight budget doing your own video, but you need something that you can hand over to a videographer or to an editor. You have probably seen something a bit different than this, but this is what I use on simple video production. So the first column on the left is the visuals. So this is the part where I need to film footages or where I need to insert photos. Everything that would show up on my screen, I would write it here on this column. And the next column is the audio. Okay, so I would probably have a dialogue, a soundbite, or a voiceover, or a reference to another audio clip from a separate video, but I would put it in this column. And the third column is simply, where I put effects or remarks for the editor and the videographer, so that, they have an idea what they are working on. Because it's one thing to shoot videos, but it's a different thing when you sit on your computer and you start editing. I tell you, a lot of things can really come up and surprise you. So using this very simple storyboard format, I hope you can start structuring your videos and really breaking down your talking points. If you have questions, if you have a piece of sound bites that you need to film for a specific sequence, and you just wanted to look at this piece of document as something that's like a blueprint. It gives you an idea, what am I looking at when this dialogue is being mentioned, and is there any effects, or is there something that I prefer on the editing? Well, I'm glad that you're still sticking around here. On the third part of our video, I'm going to show you a simple demonstration on how you can film using your smartphone. So I'm not going to take up much of your time. Let's jump in straight to the third part of our video. So you probably noticed there's a smartphone in front of me right now because I'm going to be talking about practical smartphone videography. And on the next part of our series, we're going to be editing the actual video that we're filming right now. My name is Robert. I'm a content creator, and my passion is to help you become content creators. So if you have been following our video episodes, which we do weekly, you would probably know by now that we are an advocate of solo entrepreneurs, and for them to learn doing and producing their own content, whether it's video or it's design or it's photography. We really wanted to transform entrepreneurs to become content creators themselves. Not only would that be cost effective, but the journey of creating your own content is really amazing and it's priceless. So let's jump straight to our topic today. So I'm gonna be sharing you a few practical tips on what you can take note when you're filming using your smartphone camera. Not many of you would probably have access to expensive cameras. I happen to have a light setup and the usual microphone that I have clip on me when I do my video episode, and I have another camera filming this episode while I'm demonstrating how to actually film using a smartphone, which is an iPhone in front of me. So the first tip that I have for you right now is, when you film your video episode, make sure that you have a gap, a buffer of, let's say, 3 to 5 seconds for the beginning of your shot. It means from the moment you press record, there should be a gap of 3 to 5 seconds before you start talking. Okay, we cannot really emphasize it right now, but when we go to editing, you would understand why it's important to have a gap at the beginning and towards the end of your video. It helps the editing process more seamless. It gives you opportunity to transition from any introduction. If you have a branded animation as an intro to your video, is really helpful for you to have a transition. Okay, my next tip for you is, make sure the camera of your smartphone, you would have that same level in where your eye is, so that when you look at the camera, it gives it a less awkward composition, and it would help you to really connect to your audience when you film it properly. The third practical tip that I want to share with you is the rule of thirds. If you have done any photography before, or if you have friends who's doing photography, the rule of thirds is one of the most popular composition rules when capturing images using cameras. Okay? But for videos, it's also helpful. Why? Because as you would notice when I demonstrate these tips later, it gives you that space either on the left of your screen or on the right of your screen, to show a bit of visuals, either text, images, or even video captions. Because if you have seen some of our videos, we have discussed more than once that it's important to have supporting footage when you're doing videos, no matter how short or how long your video is. Another practical tip that I have for you is, if you don't have a microphone like I'm using right now, as you would notice, my audio is a bit clearer. Make sure that your distance between where you're seated and where your camera is, it's close enough to capture clear audio. But if you really want to make your audio clear, you can invest on microphones and audio recorders, shotgun microphones for smartphones. There are a lot of affordable choices for you out there. Last but not the least, when people use their smartphones to capture video, especially using the front lens, not the back lens, so the tendency is for them to look at the screen of the smartphone, which would result like in an awkward, slightly not aligned footage. So make sure you're looking straight where your lens is. So right now I'm going to demonstrate the use of these practical tips that I shared you just to wrap up this episode, and stay tuned for the next episode because we're going to be going straight to editing this exact video that I'm filming. Okay, let me just set up my smartphone. So I am now on the selfie mode. I hate to call it that way, selfie mode. So I'm filming using the front camera of my smartphone. Okay, so I'm gonna set this to video. So to demonstrate this properly, I'm gonna be recording an actual video snippet using my smartphone camera. So let me just press record, and we're gonna be having the 3 to 5 second gap at the beginning of the video. Okay, now that we're recording, we have set it aside, the first 3 to 5 second gap at the beginning of the video. As you would notice, right now I'm filming using my smartphone and using the front camera of my smartphone. So the tips that I mentioned a while ago is, the level of your smartphone, the lens of your smartphone should be in the same level of your eye, which I have right now. And the rule of thirds is I have like a space here on this side of my screen right now. So I'm gonna demonstrate on the editing on the episode where I'm gonna be showing you how to edit. I'm gonna demonstrate how you can use this space, to put graphics or to put visuals. So I'm also gonna demonstrate how my smartphone is picking up my sound. So this is how my lapel mic sounds like, and this is how the microphone from my camera sounds like. So you would notice the distinction. So having a lapel mic is really, it's better. The quality of your audio would be really obvious. Okay? So right now I want to demonstrate to you the part which I said you should be looking at the lens of the camera. So right now I'm looking at the lens of the camera, and right now I'm looking at the screen of my phone. So you would notice that there's a bit of an alignment problem, because if I'm gonna look at my smartphone screen, I'm gonna look like I'm looking, in a different angle. So I have to go back and look at specifically at my lens. So ending this video, I would have another 3 to 5 second gap towards the end, and in that way, I will be able to explain to you when you go to editing why this is important. I'm gonna stop the recording and I'm gonna go back to my Osmo Pocket to wrap up today's episode. So how is it going so far? Right now, we're gonna jump into one of the important aspects of video editing, which is the software. So I'm gonna show you I'm gonna walk you through the Premiere Pro Workspace and get yourself familiarized on how you can navigate through the whole workspace. And just a note, if you have done any design work in the past using, let's say, Photoshop, using Premiere Pro right now, transitioning to Premiere Pro will not be a challenge for you. So I'm quite excited. Are you excited? So let's jump into the next part of our video. So quickly, I want to show you the Premiere Pro Workspace. So we're gonna do it like in small bits of pieces in the next few weeks until you really get that comfort in doing your own videos and editing it on Premiere Pro. So going to my screen here, I have my Premiere Pro open. So I want to talk about Workspace, the Premiere Pro Workspace. So a workspace is practically like your office desktop. It's a way to arrange your videos, your audio, your assets. And in Premiere Pro, you can easily use template workspaces, or you can create your own workspace, no matter how you prefer it, and as long as it makes your job easier. So let's go to my computer right now and check out how we can maximize the Premiere Pro workspace. I have Premiere Pro open right now, so what I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to be creating a new project here, and you can see the this dialog box is just practically allowing me to name my project. So let's say I'm just going to call this a demo video. And the most important thing to note here is, you have to make sure that on the location you are on a specific folder. So I have here a Premiere Pro Workspace working folder. So if I go in, and I'm just gonna create another folder here and call it Premiere. Okay. And it would launch my the default workspace, which is practically the last workspace that I use. So I want to go quickly here and give you an insight on what you're looking at. So most editing softwares, they are practically the same when it comes to the workspace. The principles of importing videos and cutting it into sequence is practically the same on all video editing softwares. I've tried a lot of softwares before I settled to Premiere Pro, because Premiere Pro is easy and it's fast, at least for me. So we're looking at the workspace now. So practically what you need to do is on this whole screen, whenever I click in a specific panel here, you would notice the blue outline. So it means that's the active workspace. So let's say when I go to window menu and let's choose the editing. Okay, so this is the default arrangement of the workspace, which is called the editing workspace. So it practically gives me this program panel and this effects control and the source. So this is where I'm going to see all the clips that I have later, and below this is the sequence or the timeline. So this is where you build your videos and your audios, and on the lower left you have the effects, the libraries, markers, and history. So once you are presented with this workspace layout, you can practically close anything that you don't like. For example, I don't usually use the markers, so I'm gonna just click this icon here and say close panel. Okay, and history, let's say I want to close this. So when I started using Premiere Pro, I want to keep it really minimal. Don't usually use the media browser because I always do imports straight from my hard drive. Okay, so on this right side here is this is pretty new for Premiere Pro. They just recently added this, so you have the essential graphics and the lumetri color, which is used for adjusting the color of your video. So for us to basically understand this, I'm missing one panel, which is the projects panel. So I'm gonna go here and open the project. So I'm just gonna drag here. This is another way to rearrange your workspace. So let's say you want to move this, you just have to drag it anywhere you want it. But for me, I prefer my project panel here on the lower side of my screen. So I'm just gonna be demonstrating how to bring in the files. So I'm gonna double click here and navigate to my desktop, and I have an import folder here. So once I imported it, it's gonna be in my project panel now. So this contains graphics and music, which I'm gonna be using, but I'm not gonna be demonstrating the editing for this episode. I just want to keep it short. So if I'm gonna import another set of files again, so I have here on my Premiere Pro Workspace directory the audio and the video. This is the Premiere folder that we did a while ago. So just to quickly show you how the sequence looks like, so it's as easy as dragging this. So below this you have a couple of icons here: delete, new, and a folder here. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna drag this to the new icon, and now I have my sequence filled with the video that I have. Okay, so this is the easiest way to bring in your clip. Okay, so now that I have my clip, you have seen that in my workspace, this effects control here is already showing up, properties of the clip, which is, when we look here closer, it's the motion, where I can change the position, the scale, I can rotate, and I can even change the opacity. So these are the basic stuff that you can change. So how this works is, you have to make sure that you have selected the proper clip here before making any changes here on this effect controls. Okay, so a few more things. More important sets of tool is found here, usually beside your timeline. Okay, I'm not gonna go to this in detail for this episode, because I wanna do short episodes for the whole editing process. So on the top of your workspace, there's also a lot of options for the workspace. So it's either you go here on your window or select here. Let's say I want to make changes. I want to make this, my program or my sequence, bigger. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna put my mouse on this small gap here, tiny gap. And once you see this arrow, that allows you to move and resize your panel. So I want it, a bit aligned like this, so that when I'm working, so yeah, I just have enough space for my files and my effects, and here are the graphics and the colors. So when I select the clip and I do a bit of a change, let's say I want to make the temperature towards the cool side, so this is, you would notice that it's changing the color of my clip. Okay, so it's just basic, and whatever you're doing here, once you change the lumetric color, once you click this here, you'll notice on this effects control that you have the lumetric color added here. So this is basically the same control for this one. The difference is you can practically animate stuff here, because on your effects, when you see this toggle, I call it looks like a small alarm clock, it's a toggle. It means that you can do animation on a specific attribute of your video. So lastly, this is called the playhead. So as you scrub your playhead from left to right, it means from the beginning of your video towards a specific location of your video, you will notice this changes also. Okay, so I can control from here or from here. So it's practically does the same thing for me. So these three are connected. So once I select the clip, it brings me to a specific location on my clip, on the sequence that I want to build. So let's say going here, just gonna simply cut this and cut it here. So when I put this together, you would notice that there's a jump. Okay, demonstrate how the sound, so that's a jump. And one more thing before I wrap up this episode. So usually depends on how fast your machine is, you would notice a bit of a lag and it's a bit slow. So here on the lower right side of your sequence program, you would see a bit of numbers here. So it says full, half, and 1/4. So this is the easiest way for you to control the resolution. So if I have this in full, you would notice that when I play it, it's a bit there's a bit of a lag. It's not really obvious because I'm using a 16 gigabyte iMac, but I would highly recommend that you edit with this 1/4 resolution, so it helps you do it faster and really focus on the cutting and building your stories. Now that I've introduced to you the Premiere Pro Workspace, it's time to jump in and learn the fundamentals of editing. Remember, whatever software you're going to be using, either Premiere Pro, Filmora, or KineMaster, the concept, and the principles of editing is the same. So let's jump in, and so that you would learn the fundamentals of video editing right now, coming up in this video. Right now, we're still working on the iPhone video that we filmed. I think on episode 2, just check the playlist to see that specific episode. Or I'm gonna add the link towards the end of this video. So first thing I want to emphasize on what I mentioned before on the importance of having a 3 to 5 second gap at the beginning and at the ending of your video. So if I play this video right here, okay, so you will notice there's that gap before I started talking. So the objective is to cut on the part before I start talking. So looking at this screen, you would notice this blue line. So this is my playhead. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hit Command K on my keyboard, and it's gonna select the from the beginning of my clip. So I'm just gonna hit delete and removing that specific part of our timeline for our sequence. So the next thing to demonstrate the transition is I'm gonna click on the type tool here and just click anywhere on my video, and let's say let's write opening frame. Okay, so I'm just gonna quickly demonstrate how you can easily create your opening frame. So what I did was I created this phrase, and in this panel here, which is the essential graphics, so it gives me the options to control my text, change my font, change my font size, and everything else. So let's say I want to use a bold font for this, and using the alignment and transform tool, I'm gonna hit vertical center and horizontal center. For this part, again, I like using solid background, black colored background. So again, as you would notice, the shape is on top of the text. I'm just gonna drag this down here. Okay, now that I have this black background, I'm just gonna bring it all here. So as you would notice on my timeline, I have this opening frame clip here. So what I'm gonna be doing is I'm gonna join the two of this using the dissolve effect. So on the effects panel, you will just go to the video transition and select the deep to black, and I'm just gonna drag it joining the two clips here. So as you would notice, let's just fix my screen. So you would notice I have the deep to black transition combining these two clips. So if I play this clip, I would have this here. Okay, now that we're recording, so that's a nice clean transition here. So what Premiere Pro allows me to do is I can adjust the duration of this transition. So if I pull it towards the middle, closer to each other, so it shortens the transition. So if I play this, it's a bit faster. So let's say I want it somewhere here. Okay, saving it. So another way to control it is if you select the transition, not the clip, but the transition, and if you go to the effect controls, you can also control the duration here. So if I want it to be shorter, I would say, let's say 7. Oops, actually made it longer. Let's say put 0.7 here. Then my transition would be shorter. Okay, now that we're recording, so now that we have that in place, it's just a matter of, doing the outro. So I'm just gonna click on this opening clip here and bring it towards the end of my sequence. So I'm going to show you a different way of doing the transition when closing your footage. So I'm just going to play this here using the space bar again. Today's episode. Okay, so let's just cut it from here. Take this out, and instead of joining this together, let's try to do an overlap. Okay, and when I say overlap, so I'm just gonna be dragging my clip a bit, covering the iPhone recording, and then I'm just gonna put the transition on both clips. So let's see how this looks like. Today's episode. Okay, so we have a good ending frame here, and since it says opening frame here, I'm just gonna select the text and change this to closing frame, align it again, and let's say for this part I want to demonstrate another cool feature of the essential graphics. So let's say I wanted to use a graphic design or a graphic frame as my closing frame. So I'm just gonna go here and click the new layer here and select from file. So it's gonna allow me to find a graphic here. Let's say let's take this new end frame. So what it does is it added that graphic as a layer on our essential graphics here, but since we don't need the closing frame and the shape, we can just easily delete that. As you would notice, the transition was kept. So if I play it here, today's episode, so we have a nice looking and seamless transition towards the end of our clip. Okay, and lastly, I want to demonstrate how you properly add music. Okay, so in my project panel here, I'm just going to navigate on the folder where I have my music here. So I'm just going to double click this and it will show up here on my source panel. So whatever you're editing, you're going to be using the same keyboard shortcuts when you're assigning an input and an output. So let's say I'm going to start from the beginning of my clip. Okay, so what I would do is I would hit I on my keyboard. Let's say I want to extract up to this part, so I'm just gonna hit O on my keyboard, which means out. So I is in, O is out. So when I drag this icon here, drag audio, and I put it in the beginning of my clip and I play it, okay, now so the idea is, before I start talking, the music should be fading out. In this example, if I continue to play this, okay, now that we're recording, so you would notice if you don't use any transition, there's an abrupt cutting of the background music. So you would have to go here in the audio transition. So a while ago we used the video transition, so now using audio transition, I'm just going to pull constant power and drag it here, make it a bit long and pull it towards the left. So if I play this, okay, now that we're recording, we have so you would notice it blends a bit before I start talking. So we're gonna do the same thing towards the end, but we're just gonna drag this or click towards the end here and hit O. and then click probably a few frames behind it and click I. So you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be in any specific order. You can start with out and then select the in. So the same manner, I'm just gonna drag it here, and let's fine-tune our ending. So we're just gonna put the transition at the beginning again. So you would notice I have a marker here. So this marker signifies the point where the music stops. So the idea is, and I have to align this marker at the end of my the last frame of my graphic. And so let's check this. Wrap up today's episode. Yeah, so that's one of the techniques that I use to close my videos. So that's the three basic principles in putting together a simple sequence that you can use when you're editing your video on Premiere Pro. So how was it? I bet you're excited to cut down your clips and put it together and come up with an awesome video. But up next, I'm gonna show you, the basic effects that you can use and how you can manage effects, how you can modify effects, and what are the standard effects that are available for you using Premiere Pro. Even though you have very limited resources right now, or you might have, enough resources, you have the best camera right now, but at the end of the day, when you work on your video editing, you would need effects. So I'm gonna give you a quick walkthrough on how you can use these effects on Premiere Pro. So let's head on straight to my computer and work on our demo project. So we're still working on Premiere Pro right now, and I still have the video clip that we recorded a few episodes ago. You can check the playlist on the video production for solopreneurs. Since this video is aimed for beginners, so let me just give you a walkthrough of what you're looking at right now. So in Premiere Pro, as I've mentioned before, you have the option to change your workspace. So there's an episode that's dedicated on the workspace. Check it out on the playlist. And when I go to window and go to workspace, there's the effects workspace that's predefined for you by Premiere Pro. So in a way, you have everything that you need in your screen right now. We have the effects panel here on the right, the essential graphics, essential sound, the color, libraries, markers, history, and info. But we're not going to be dealing with all of this stuff. I want to talk about effects in this episode and give you the beginner editor, give you a basic idea how effects are used in your videos. So basically, video editing is all about combining clips. Most of the time, when you combine these clips, you would want it to look more interesting, and you would want to dig more into the aesthetics of your video. So it's a matter of figuring out what sort of effect you want. So I'm gonna talk about a few of the most common effects that is being used right now. So if you look at the effects panel, if I'm just gonna adjust this, as I mentioned before in the workspace, once you have this blue border here, it means this panel is selected, so I can just practically control it here. So what you see here in the effects panel, I'm just gonna adjust my mouse. What you see here in the effects panel is a couple of effects folders. So you have the presets here, which is predefined for you by Premiere Pro, but I have a few presets here as well, which I did on my own and save it so I can make it reusable. So there is another preset here, that's the lumetri. So this deals with the color of your video, and of course an audio effects and audio transition, and video effects, video transition. And you can also have like your favorite folder. So it's as easy as clicking this here, and you can call it my effects. So in case you want to bookmark the effects that you like, you just keep dragging it here and you would have easy access to it. So let's go straight to effects. So the idea is, you select an effects from this panel, and once it's on your clip, you would have an effects control at the top left of your screens. So let's say I'm gonna go and try and get the video effects here and see if I can sharpen my video using the effects here. So I have a few options here, so you can go and test each one and see how it works, but I'm just gonna show you practically how you choose and select the effect that you want. So let's say I want to use a sharp mask and drag it on my clip. So if you would notice here on the top left side of my screen, a sharp mask is added in my effects control. So basically that's how it works in Premiere Pro. You drag the effects on the clip and you make the changes here. So let's say I'm just gonna shift to the non-proxy view on my sequence here. So let's see if I'm gonna up the sharpness a bit and the radius. You would see how it looks like here on the, if you pay attention here, it's drastically affecting my clip right here, as you would notice. So if you want to compare your clip before and after the effect, you can just simply click this effects button here. So when I click effects, that's the previous state of my clip without the effects. And if I click on sharp mask, so it's there, and it's that easy to get the effects on your Premiere Pro. So you can take as much time as you want selecting the effect that you want here. Okay, but something else I want to discuss is transition. Let's say towards the end of my clip, okay, I want to add this end frame here. Okay, so a transition, as defined in our last episode, is the bit of effect that you have when you combine two clips. So what I would do here is, on the effects, going to the video transition. Usually dissolve is used for this type of effects. So if I have dip to black assigned, this is my clip, I just drag the dip to black effect here. I'm just gonna drag this clip beside it and add another dip to black. Okay, so we have two clips transitioning using the dip to black effect. So if we check how this looks like, so that's how it looks like. So that's how you control the effects in Premiere Pro. Again, you should make sure that you're selecting the clip here, and once you go to the effects control here, the list of effects would be here. So let's say I have another video effect. Let's say I wanted the color correction here, which is channel mixer. So when I drag it here, you would notice this is my channel mixer now. Okay, so another thing that you need to note is this blue line here, which is the playhead. Make sure the playhead is pointed to your selected clip, so you would see what changes are being made. So on the channel mixer, once you see all the blue numbers here, it means that's the value that you can change for your effect. So if I make my red moving forward to 200, you would notice that my clip turns red. So you don't want to really do this. Just to demonstrate how you can manage your effects in Premiere Pro. So when do you need to use the channel mixer is when you want to isolate the different colors on your clip. You experiment with the values here. So that's it for the effects. Going back to our panel here, recently the latest versions of Premiere Pro have added essential graphics and Essential Graphics, and Lumetric Color. Okay, so before we have that channel mixer there, now you can change the color here in the Lumetric Color panel. So you have the basic saturation, exposure. So if you are used to editing your photos on your phone, you know, this is basically the same principle for you. Wow, you've gone this far. Next, we're going to be jumping to something more, a little bit of an advanced skill set, which is animation. Again, I'm going to be showing you the principle and how you can start working on your first animated clip in Premiere Pro, and then it's up to you how you can bring this to the next level. And our topic would cover animation and text for today. So you would learn the principle of how animation works. So if this is your first time doing animation, you would learn, you know, the very basic principles why animations are important and how it is created. You know, using these principles, when you jump into other softwares like After Effects, for example, you will be able to use the same principles and create your animation and just import it back to your Premiere Pro projects and then export it as your final video. So we're gonna head onto my computer right now, and I'm just gonna be discussing to you the basics of animation and also showing you how to come up with really simple but cool text on screen for your videos. So we're going to start with a blank sequence. So we have an empty sequence right here. I'm calling it animation. So we have the usual program panel here, and you have the layers here for your sequence or your timeline. So what is an animation? If this is the first time that you're creating animation, it's as simple as showing movement on your screen. So it's a matter of showing an instance from one point to another, and so on and so forth. As long as you have 2 or more instances of your clips, your text, your images, your stock videos, whatever you have, your shapes in your screen, that is practically what animation is. So to give you a clear example of an animation, so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go to my type tool here, which is on my tool palette. I would just click here, and going back to my screen, my program, I would just click anywhere in the middle of the screen. So you would see, you know, a red line or a red rectangle in the middle of the screen. So as you would notice on my timeline, I have that a frame in my sequence already, and it's called a graphic. Okay, so how I can change that is, if I go to my essential graphics on the right, I've mentioned this in a past few episodes, this is where I can write my text. Okay, so it's as simple as writing my text, and we have stuff here where I can align, I can change the font, I can change the color and other attributes for my text. So let's say I want Helvetica bold. Okay, let's make this a bit orange. Okay, and if you want to bring the text in the middle of the screen, it allows me to do that using this align and transform here on this menu. So I would click vertical center and horizontal center. So basically right now my text is in the middle of the screen. So let's try and create another title. Okay, so how I can do that is, first I can either create a new layer here where I can choose rectangle, let's say, and then I want to make it, you know, white. As you would notice on the essential graphics, the shape is on top of the text, so I will just simply pull this down so that my shape goes below my text. Okay, so I'm just gonna create a basic white rectangle background for my text right here. Okay, now I have the simple text on the middle of my screen with a white rectangle. So now we can proceed to animating my text. Okay, so the way to do that, let's just set this to a 5-second clip. So the way to do that is either I go to the effects, where I would just select push. So when I drag the push, I've shown it in previous episodes before. I would just have to drag the effects here. So when I drag it here, it gives me that duration of the animation from the beginning towards the end, where you show a bit of a brown bar or brown line on your clip. So it means the animation would start from here going to this part. So when I play the video, okay, so that's a very basic demonstration of how animation works, but you would want something more complex than this, because this is the simplest way to animate your graphic on screen. So just to highlight, if I click this brown bar here, which is selecting the effect, and I go to my effects control here, so I would see all this stuff here that would allow me to change the behavior of my animation. So I can change the duration. Right now it's at 1 second and 5 frames. So that's how you read it. This is second and this is frame. Okay, so it's 1 second and 5 frame. Because we are at a 25 frames per second clip, let's try and do it less than 1 second, which is 20 frames. Okay, as you would notice, my clip got shorter, and it means my animation would be a bit faster. If I want it to be a bit more faster, let's say 10 frames. Okay, this is more what I want to accomplish. Okay, so my clip is moving from my left to my right. So as you would notice, when I'm previewing my animation, there's a bit of a blur here because I have selected a playback resolution of 1/4, which helps me to speed up my editing. So if you want a full resolution, it's okay, but your machine would not be fast enough for this if you have a lot of elements on your sequence. So let's try and select full and play our clip. So that's what we have now. And another one to highlight is that if you want to animate your clip, because right now it's coming from the left to the right, so if you want it coming from the other side, you would just simply select this transition effect again, and on this effects control, just click on reverse, and when I play the video, that would come from the right. So those are very basic simple animation. So what I was talking about a while ago is that this consists of 2 instances of my clip. The first instance is the one where it's on the right side of my sequence, which is not visible right now, going to the second sequence, which is at the middle of my screen. So to make this clearer, let's do the other way of animating a clip on your screen. Okay, so what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna select this clip just to make sure that we're working on the clip that we want, and on this side in the effects control we have what you call the attributes that you can apply effects to, or movement or animation. So you can animate the motion. So basically it's position, scale, rotation, anchor point, and filter, but we're gonna just be dealing with rotation, scale, and position right now. So if you want to adjust the scale, the width and the height independent of each other, you would just have to unclick the uniform scale, but we're just gonna work on the uniform scale right now. And you can also animate the opacity. This is the, how clear the clip is. Time remapping, we're not gonna show that today. As you would notice, in the previous versions of Premiere Pro, you only have this portion here, the video attributes. So regardless if you're using a video, a clip, a graphic, a shape, an image, it's called video here on your effects control panel. So in the latest versions of Premiere Pro, they have the graphics section here, which is just practically what we did on our graphics panel. So it means we can animate it individually, you know, the text and the shape, or we can animate it as a clip, okay, which means the text and the shape together. Okay, so let's do the video animation or the clip animation here. So what I want to show you is, this is called the toggle animation icon, okay, so it looks like a clock. Once you see this in Premiere Pro or even in After Effects, it means you can animate that an attribute. So how you do that is, first you would set your playhead. Let's say I want to start at the 5-frame mark and assign a keyframe on that. Let's say I want to change the position, okay? So it means what I just did is I created the first instance of my clip. So moving to, let's say, 15 frames, okay, I want to do the end point of my keyframe. So right now, if you can see here, I have 2 instances of my clip, the first instance and the second instance, which I can click and it turns to blue. So how I navigate from one instance to another is this icon here that shows go to the previous frame or go to the next frame. So you can either select it manually by clicking the mouse, but this is safer so that you're sure that you're going to the specific frame. So at this case, if we want to show the previous animation that we did using the effects, I'm just gonna drag my X. Now I'm not gonna show it all the way out of the frame, but just to show you and demonstrate how it goes. So right now, my first instance is my clip is starting at the left, and my second instance, it goes to the middle. So when I play my video, so if I want it to be shorter, I would just click this keyframe here, just drag it closer, and if I play the clip again, so it's faster. So what's interesting here is, I can do it in a way where as my clip is going from the left to the right, I want to adjust my scale. So in the same way, the technique is that I would align a keyframe for the position onto my scale attribute. So I would just click here, create my first keyframe, and then on my position keyframe, I would go to the next keyframe and align it to my second instance of my scale. Okay, so now I have attributes assigned for scale and position. So as you would notice, my toggle animation icon here is blue. It means there's an active animation that's assigned to it. So if I go back to the first instance of my animation and I wanted to start small, okay, so right now you notice that it was a bit off from my previous position. So I'm just gonna go and click my position here and just keep dragging it here just because I want to align it here. Okay, so when I play my graphic, okay, since we have 2 attributes animated, let's try to do it. Let's try to adjust the duration a bit longer. Let's see. Okay, so what we did here is we assigned 2 instances for the position and scale attribute. Okay, so as my clip or my playhead goes to my final keyframe, which is at the middle, the height also adjusts. Okay. So lastly, I can also add the opacity for this. And again, just so that my playhead is aligned, I would create the keyframe here and align it again to my end keyframe. So I want to start with 0%, which would make my clip invisible. And when I play my clip here, Just to show you, I'm going to use my arrow key. Okay, so that's very basic animation where you can play around just by using the motion attributes. Okay, if you want to rotate, just to show you, I'm not gonna animate the rotation, but if I change my rotation here, you would notice. Okay, so I'm just gonna bring it back to 0. I don't want to change the rotation part. Okay, so again, just to review, animation is simply creating 2 instances or more. When I say more, if I just drag this a bit here, and let's say I want to go here and assign keyframes for each of this. Okay, let's say on my position, I want to bring it down this time. Okay, and on my scale, I want to make it to 10%. That's too small. Let's say 40. Okay, and adjust the position again, and I'm gonna go to 0 again for this part. So obviously this will be a fast animation, so I'm just gonna drag this here. So when I play my clip, okay, so the problem with this is, once it hits the part where it's supposed to show the final end frame, so most beginning editors would forget that they have to at least display or show this ending keyframe for a while before moving to the next animation. So what I'm gonna be doing is just gonna create another frame here. So this is 960 and 540. Bring this to 100. Bring this to 100. So just gonna drag this all the way to the right, and this also. So what happens here is once it reaches this stage, it would stay showing that before going to the next instance. So once you play it, okay, so for something like this, you would need this to be longer, so the animation would be shorter, but showing your frame would be a bit longer, like this. So that's the basic principle of using animation on Premiere Pro, and using this, you can start creating and exploring, experimenting on your Premiere Pro on how to make your videos interesting. Now, putting that all together, you need the proper way to export. You need to understand what are your options in exporting your video. So last part of our video today, I'm gonna show you the best practices in exporting a video depending on what you want your video format to be. So let's jump in and watch the last stage, the last part of our video today. Okay, today as we wrap up our series, I'm just gonna go to the most important thing in video production, which is exporting your video. Because no matter how good your video is, no matter how fancy your visuals, your shots, even your sound, and even the content of your video, if you're not able to export it properly, your video is not really going anywhere. So as I've mentioned, there are a lot of cameras or devices available to you right now. Most of them are really affordable, but there are different ways of exporting this video. And as we have discussed in the past 7 episodes, the very basic tools that you have and you can use in Premiere Pro is really enough for you to upload that first video episode of your brand. Even if you're a small personal brand, or even if you're a small team, it's just a matter of writing stuff and putting it all together, and filming yourself and jumping into Premiere Pro. By the way, I will be putting together a lesson on Filmora, because a lot of my friends are using Filmora because according to them, Premiere Pro is a bit too pricey for them. But anyway, we're gonna wrap up today's episode, and we're gonna head straight to my computer to demonstrate, how to properly export your video like a pro, even if you're just a beginner. Okay, we're still working on our demo sequence on Premiere Pro, and I have a few things to discuss for you to be able to, export like a pro, even though you're a beginner in Premiere Pro. So first, I want you to look at your timeline sequence. So if you're not yet familiar, I have an episode on this series that's called the Premiere Pro Workspace. You can always go back there. It's a few minutes of introductory video to familiarize yourself on what these panels are and what are these functions and how you can use this. Okay, so first, in exporting your video, you have to check your timeline sequence. Okay, first and foremost, for someone like me, I always use an HD recorder. So when you look at my sequence, I have two audio layers here. For most of you, you might just be using plug into camera microphone or lav mic, so you won't have this. But in case you have more than one audio clip on your sequence, so make sure you enable the sequence that you need to export. So in this case, the blue clip here, this is the audio coming from my camera, but I want to export this one, the green one, which is my HD recorder, and of course my music intro or my music bed. So for the fun part, let me just zoom in here for a bit, and you would need to go to File, Export in Media, or Control M. Okay, after that, you would be presented with this box that contains the export settings. So just to zoom in here a bit so that it's clearer on your end, and I'm just gonna drag this here. Okay, so what we see here is, of course, the output preview. Our clip is I think a 16-minute clip, okay, or 16-second clip. Okay, so right here you have the option to match sequence settings, but the problem with matching the sequence settings is that you might be combining different footages, stock footage and photos. So usually for me, I leave it unchecked. But for best results, you can experiment based on what footage you're using. And for the format, it's usually H.264. If you intend to upload your video on the web, H.264 is the best format for you. So QuickTime is the popular Apple Macintosh video format, and there's a lot of stuff here, a lot of options. If you want to do simple GIF, you can now export GIF from Premiere Pro, which we find really difficult to do back in the days. Okay, so you can also export in a JPEG format, and of course an MP3. So if you don't have any knowledge in using any sound editing software, if you're used to Premiere Pro, you can export your audios here as well. Okay, so going back to my interface here, so there are a lot of presets that you can access if you're using the license of Premiere Pro. So if I'm gonna zoom out here, yes, you will see YouTube presets here, Vimeo, and these VR presets. Of course, now they have the Twitter presets. So what the presets does is that it has the settings predefined for you. So if you know where you're going to be uploading your video, you just have to select it from here. But usually in my case, I would just use the match source high bitrate. Okay, so this output name here, you can actually click this to determine the path that you prefer. So I have a projects folder here, and let's say I want to save it on a new folder and call it demo. So now I have a demo folder on my projects folder somewhere in my documents, and I'm gonna go for the smartphone video demo file name, and I'm gonna save this. So now the summary would show you practically the settings that you currently have. Okay, and apart from that, you can play around with the different settings here. But the most important thing to note is that at the bottom of this dialog box, you would see the file size, the estimated file size. So you would have an idea how big your file is. Okay, so make sure you have export video and export audio check. Yeah, that's important. And it says here that our output is an HD video, which is the same as our source. You would see here, this is our source, our frames per second on our sequence. And the audio settings, you can just practically click here, and 4800 hertz is 48,000 hertz is a good setting for your audio, and of course you want it to be on stereo mode. Okay, so once you get this all done, you can practically export. You can either export it or queue it. But before I go there, let's say you're going to be doing a series of videos and you want to export it in the same settings. Premiere Pro allows you to create a preset out of that. So let's say I modified some of the settings here, and I want instead of hardware encoding, I want to go for software encoding. You would notice that my preset is now called custom. Okay, so if I click this save preset button here, that would allow me to name and save my preset. Why would I want to do that is there are cases where you're going to be filming a series of videos that you want it to be using the same settings when you export it. So it makes sense for you to create a preset for that. I'm going to cancel this because I don't need this right now, and I'm just going to go to my high bitrate preset. Okay, so the first thing that you can do here is, if you hit export, it would go straight to exporting your video. But as I have mentioned a while ago, there's a better way of exporting your video wherein you can queue it and export a number of sequences at the same time, and still would allow you to work on Premiere Pro while you're exporting. So you have a button here that's called queue. So when I hit this, okay, so just gonna delete my first queue. So now it gives me access to this Adobe Media Encoder panel. So you can still change the settings here if you want it, change your mind and want to go for QuickTime instead. You can do it from here. And the preset you can select here, and of course if you want to save it in a different location, you can just always click this. Okay, so what Adobe Media Encoder would do for you is you can have a queue of videos here, and when you hit start queue, it's just gonna export it for you. So it depends on how fast your machine is. Right now it's exporting my video, and it gives me an estimate duration of my export. So right now I'm roughly 1 minute away from finishing my export. I'm just gonna stop this. We don't have to wait for this. So I'm just gonna stop this and go back here, and that's it for exporting your videos from Premiere Pro. It's really simple. So if you have time to go back to the previous episodes, that would help you a lot, and give you that understanding of the video production process, which is, as I keep mentioning, it's not really that difficult. So I tried to put together a very basic series of lessons for you.
Congratulations, you went through the whole 8-part video in one episode today, and I hope that helped you in your video content creation journey. And again, if you see any value in this video, please hit subscribe and the notification bell so you wouldn't miss out on videos like this in the future. So it's time to go to work. It's your time to grow. Thank you for watching, and see you in my next videos.